So about 5 years ago, I actually fully switched from Android to iOS. And before then, I was like a full-on Android fanboy, and I still am completely, but I randomly kind of switched because there was an extra iPhone at our house, and I just kind of switched to it. And to be honest, there was never a big switch in my, standpoint. I don't think I like fully switched from Android to iOS. It was kind of like a gradual change. And it's funny because I kind of made this change on YouTube, 5 years ago or 6 years ago at this point. I fully switched over. I made some tutorials on how to change, go from Android to iOS and all that stuff. And I was actually coming from an LG G2 at that time, which at that point was my favorite phone of all time. Probably actually my second tier phone. My favorite phone I ever used right before that was the Nexus 4. And that phone was a beast. It had so much capability, but that 6 Plus was a massive phone and I loved it a lot. But I felt like it was kind of a downgrade in some ways too, because I just was not able to customize my iPhone 6 Plus as much as I wanted to. But I noticed that the camera quality with that specific phone was so much better than my G2, which didn't make any sense because that G2 had a better camera on paper. But when I was using it and when I was like going through one after the other, I noticed that the 6 Plus had a much better camera, but also it was a much smoother and predictable device. With my Androids at that point, because I was so into custom ROMing and rooting my phones and everything, I felt like I had complete control, so I was expecting it to be a completely glitchy experience. With my 6 Plus, there was really no customizability for the most part, but I was actually able to just feel like I had a way more stable phone. There were many times my Nexus 4 wouldn't load up. There were tons of times my G2 randomly started boot looping, and then after I actually switched to the 6 Plus, I started having the touch disease problem. But that G2 served me well, and all my Android phones before then served me well, too. But then the 7 Plus came out, and I actually went up to the 6S Plus, and then to a 7 Plus, and then to a 10, to an 11 Pro, then to a 12 Pro, and now with the 13 Pro. And I truly do think that switching to iOS really didn't impact anything. I'm not the type of person to use my phone a lot. I like having a stable device. I do like things like iMessage and FaceTime and different things like that, but I really don't think there was a crazy big change, a crazy big upgrade, especially now because I still feel like I use Android because I have, a lot of Android phones that I have to review and compare. But when I look at both phones, there are so many, pros on both sides. There's really no cons, Some people may think, oh, with Android like I was before, oh, like there's no iMessage or FaceTime, but there's also not an ability to install your own apps like we have on Android, and that in and of itself is one of the biggest changes. Also, it kind of seems like, Google, at least for Google's standpoint, they kind of allow some modifications and allow some rooting here and there for these devices. With iOS, from Apple, they close these things in completely. So there's less customizability, and I wasn't a fan of that. But the biggest takeaways that I've seen time and time again are basically just the community behind these phones. When I used my Nexus 4, there was such a massive community behind it, and then with the next Nexus coming out, the Nexus 5, less and less people talked about the Nexus 4, and even now, there's still some people who talk about it, but it's not as crazy of a, community. And to give you some perspective, I look at like something like the Google Pixel 2. That phone came out, I think, in like 2016 or 2017. I look at phones like the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus and the iPhone 10, and a lot more people talk about those. So I feel like at first there may be a bigger community for some of these newer Androids, but as they get older and older, it seems like there is a much more diminished and smaller community behind these older phones, at least sometimes on the Android side, than on something like the iPhone side. People are still loving to talk about the iPhone 6S because it's still supported. With the Android side, with some Samsungs, you look at the Samsung Galaxy S7, not that many people are talking about it anymore. The only phone that even comes to mind is the Galaxy S8. So I noticed that for these older phones, especially on the Android side, less and less people think about them, where on the iPhone side, more and more people at least kind of talk about them and are interested in them still so many years later. So ultimately, I'm glad I switched, I guess 5 or 6 years ago now, but it really didn't change too much. I think, I could easily switch back to Android if I ever wanted to. I just have all my information on iCloud and I have all my stuff on, my iPhone that I don't feel like switching, but there could be a day, who knows, but that's pretty much how I feel about it. Very boring, nothing really changed, and maybe if I did this video like 2-3 years ago, there'd be a bigger change, but these phones are becoming closer and closer every single year. So in terms of that covers it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.